Ashley. It's very nice to see you again.
It's nice to be here.
Yeah. I'm glad you were able to make it.
Yeah, I am too. I feel like I've been needing this.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, last time that you were here, we talked about your boyfriend and how you guys were having some issues. How have you guys been doing ever since the last session?
Oh, I guess we've had our ups and our downs. I guess for the sake of counseling, I'm here to talk about those downs, right? I've learned some things about him, and we've been having some interesting conversations, and there's just been some times where he ignores me a little bit, and been dealing with this.
Yeah. You said you learned a few things about him. Can you elaborate a little on that?
So I learned that he's got a 3-year-old daughter. We've been dating for 3 months now, and I found this out a couple weeks ago.
Okay, that's big news to
Yeah.
find out. How does that make you feel about your relationship?
Well, when he first told me, I was almost just like, are you joking? Because he does like to mess with me a lot. He likes to say things to get under my skin because he thinks the way I react is funny. But I don't know. It was supposed to be a big secret too. I wasn't supposed to talk to anybody about it, and that really bothered me because in my personal life I don't have a lot of secrets. I talk to everybody about everything, and to have a secret that, like, because he's a part of my life and she's a part of his life, therefore I want her to be a part of my life. So her being a secret makes me a little uncomfortable, and I'll be honest, I didn't keep her a secret even though I was supposed to. And that occasionally makes me feel bad sometimes because it's just like, he's my boyfriend and I'm supposed to, I guess, I feel like I'm supposed to keep his secrets or something, or at least that I should honor his wishes about his daughter, but I couldn't handle it being a secret, because if I had to stew with it just in my own head, I felt like I would have more negative thoughts than positive thoughts.
Did you let him know that you told other people, or is this just between you?
No, I have, the people that I've told them that it's a secret, and they have to, if he ever tells them that he has a daughter, they have to be surprised like I was, and I guess if he were to ever tell my grandmother that he has a daughter, I would be okay with her saying, well, Ashley already told me, because it's just like, babe, what did you expect? I had to tell somebody.
Yeah.
And my grandmother was that person, and I would lie to his face, and I'd say, Grandma's the only person I told, because I do that a lot. I really do. I'm terrible with other people's secrets, and I've told people this, and I try not to get offended when people don't tell me secrets, because I know I'm terrible with secrets. So people who want to have secrets should not share them with me.
Okay.
It's just something I know about myself. But I guess I'm getting a little bit off track, so how did I feel when he told me? So I guess, like I said, at first I was just really shocked, and kind of, at first I was having some bad thoughts about it, because it's just like, I did also recently put on some medication, and he told me this before that, so I've had all these, I used to have these thoughts of just like, it's hard for me to say how these thoughts are, they're just like, kind of things that I don't even feel that are important, but at the time they are. I start to think, oh, so he's had a family, and like my life goal is to have a family, so it's like, but he's done this already, so what if he doesn't want to do it again, and how's that going to affect our future, and it's just some things along the lines of that.
Have you discussed these issues with him?
I had been stewing on some of those thoughts for a little while, and and this was like all in the same 72 hours that he had just told me. I said, well, now that I know this, I've got some questions just for my own peace of mind. I was just like, so did you get that family experience? And I mean, like, I felt terrible that when he told me no, he didn't. He said that he found out that his girlfriend was pregnant after they broke up. So it was an ex-girlfriend who got pregnant, and so he didn't get any of that stuff. She actually left the country, and that's I try to think for him that sounds really sad, but for me, I'm just like, it gave me a relief that he didn't get any of that family experience. And I was just like, before he had said stuff about not wanting a family, and this was before he told me about his daughter. So I asked him, I was like, do you want more kids? Do you want him? And he was just like, I had these dreams of having a beautiful family too. It's like, and having this happen didn't necessarily take them away from me, but they've changed them. And so after talking to him, I did feel a lot better at that, and more hopeful for a possible future with him. I'm not trying to say that we'll be together until that point, but I would like to know that if we did reach that point, that we're on the same page and both want to have a nice, happy family.
Okay, so now that you have this child that's in his life, are you part of this kid's life too, or?
I would like to be, but so his daughter's name is Annabelle, so I'll refer to her as Annabelle from now. So Annabelle lives with her mother, and Jake doesn't have a car or anything like that, so he only gets to see her every once in a while. I did get to meet her once, and God, she's a sweetheart. I would absolutely adore to have her a part of my life as well. And as our relationship progresses, that might be a possibility, but when he first told me about her, he said, you have no responsibility. I'm not saying you have to be a part of her life or anything like that. I think he was trying to avoid scaring me off.
Okay.
Because I had a previous conversation with him once before where I was saying that before we met, there was a guy who hit on me a couple times, and I found out he had a kid, and once I found out he had a kid, I wanted nothing to do with him. So I think that he had a little bit of insecurities about that. He was afraid that as our relationship was getting more serious, if I found out, it would scare me away.
Okay.
And even I had some insecurities about that as well.
Can you elaborate on those insecurities?
Well, I mean, it was such a shock to find out that he had a kid, and all of a sudden I had to evaluate, am I okay with this? And I didn't know if I was at first. I didn't know if this was going to change our relationship drastically, if I was going to handle it the way that I think that I should handle it, or handle it the way that I want to handle it.
Did you handle it the way that you would have expected, or?
Actually, I guess not, because before, like I said, when that one guy, he wasn't around very much, but the second I found out that he had a kid, I was just like, I'm sorry, I don't really want to go on that date anymore, because it's just, I had never really thought about dating someone who's a father.
Okay.
But, I mean, I appreciate that he didn't tell me right away, because I feel like if he told me right away, that would have happened. That I would have been like, sorry, we can be friends, because I'm not ready for that. But since we had already been dating for a couple months, it's just like, I didn't even know you had a kid, so it's obvious, like, I was like, it's not going to change our relationship, because I was just trying to think of it like that, where it's just like, instead of thinking, how's our relationship going to change, it's like, well, why would our relationship change? It's not like he just had a kid, so something's going to change. She was already there. I just didn't know about her. So now that I know, well, why does that have to change anything? Do I know what I mean? Do you know what I mean?
I do. It sounds like you're okay with this now. Yes.
I would say that I am. I haven't had any of those bad thoughts again.
Okay.
I am just like, I hope that I can see her again. I mean, we had such a wonderful day when we were together.
Yeah. So, can we go back to the beginning? You mentioned that you guys had some conversations. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit on what those conversations were?
Yeah, I mean, in our last session, we talked a lot about, like, the communications issues that me and Jake have had. And I've still been really trying to get him to communicate better with me. And our most recent one, I just took a minute, like, I was feeling really emotional. Not necessarily in a bad way, just really feeling emotional at the moment. And I wanted to have a moment with him. So I was telling him, it's like, I really appreciate you and this kind of stuff. And I started to cry a little bit because I was just emotional, but it was almost a happy kind of thing. But he kind of attacked me for crying. He's like, are you crying right now? And turned it into a bad thing. And I was just about to leave, and actually this is the last conversation we had in person with each other. And he just took that moment away from me for a second, and I started to cry in a sad way, and I'm like, I don't want to leave feeling like this. And I tried to tell him how I was feeling, and I can't remember all the things that were said, but he started to say that he's noticing that I'm a little clingy, and I mean, I appreciate that he tells me how he feels. And I took a moment to again tell him how much I appreciate that he's honest with me, and I appreciate that he does these things, but I also tried to tell him it's just like, you're really cold to me sometimes, and I would like that you are more physical. Like, can we kiss more? Can you do some of the things that I do for you? Because I feel like I do so much for him, but I get so little back.
Okay. You mentioned that, like, you're saying that you appreciate that he tells you these things, that he's honest with you about, like, you mentioned being clingy and stuff. But you're also saying that he's cold to you. I feel like it's kind of, contradicting in a way. Can you kind of explain a little bit as to
I'm
the
not,
difference?
I guess I could see how it might look like a contradiction, but I think it's more that, like, I appreciate some of the things that he does, and I try to think of positives, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer all the time on him, because then he would probably be like, well, why are you with me if all you think is I don't touch you enough, and I'm not nice enough, and I don't do this. So I try to tell him, it's like, well, you do this for me, and you do this for me, and you do this. So I guess in a way it is a little bit of a contradiction, but it's more that I want to appreciate the good things, and I want to acknowledge the bad things, so I try to tell him about that. But yeah, so I guess it's more that I just want him to know that there are the things I appreciate, and there are the things that I want to work on.
Okay. So, from what I've gotten so far is, you're still kind of having problems communicating with him, but have they kind of improved a little bit?
It seems like the further we get into the relationship, the more comfortable he gets.
That should not have rang.
It seems the more comfortable he gets, and he gets a little. He's a little bit like an onion, and I'm sitting here peeling at it, and the more I peel, the more he shares. The more he shares, the better our communication gets. So it does help. It helps me be hopeful for our communication getting better, especially if it definitely helps that I don't expect him to realize that I want to talk about something, and I just come out and say, I want to have a talk right now, because I realize that it's kind of immature to be like, and waiting for him to be like, do you want to talk about something?
Yeah.
I'm trying to work on that too, to stop being such an immature little girl and tell him what's on my mind. Because he's not me, and he's not going to know what's on my mind.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I do think that things have gotten better, but there are still some things that I'd like to work on. And I guess now our main issue isn't necessarily the communication, because we're communicating better, but it's just like sometimes, and I do appreciate his honesty, but sometimes he tells me some things that I'm just like, ouch.
Like what? Can you kind of explain a little bit?
Well, in that last conversation that we had when he called me clingy, and I'm like, that does kind of hurt for someone to say, I'm feeling like you're getting clingy, as opposed to being like, oh, I love how cuddly you are, and you're always here. And he said, you're not my wife. And I still don't know what that was supposed to mean. and I feel like it's too late to ask him, what did you mean when you said I'm not your wife, besides the obvious of the fact that I'm not your wife.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, what is that supposed to mean? I don't really know. It could mean you're not my wife, so stop, like, so stop expecting so much from me, or you're not my wife, so you're spending too much time here. It could mean a lot of things.
Yeah. Can you actually, like, tell me of a time that you two spent where you just had a good day together?
Yeah, I mean, earlier I was talking about how we had a really good day with his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably one of the best days that we've had together.
Yeah.
We had been looking forward to it, and he had saw her like a week beforehand, and I had wanted to meet her then, but he's like, I don't think I'm ready, and that was actually kind of a really big disappointment to me.
Mm.
But then he told me afterwards, he's like, oh, I'm sorry, babe, I wish you had been there, it was nice, and next time I see her, you're definitely gonna come.
Mm-hmm.
So we we drove to his mom's house, so I got to meet her for the first time, and I was kind of anxious, because I'm just like, I really want her to like me, his
Mm-hmm.
daughter Annabelle. So I bought her toys, and I bought her some, like, I showed up with donuts, and I was just like, I'm gonna bribe this kid to like me. Kids like toys and donuts, right? And she was a little shy at first, but it wasn't too bad. And he gave her a bath, and I got to see them interact, and I've always said that there's nothing more attractive than a guy who's good with kids, so I got to watch him interact with his daughter, and I thought that was beautiful. And that was kind of something internal for me. But then we went to the park, and he played with her a little bit, and then me and Annabelle played a little bit together. She got comfortable in the park setting, and she killed me. She'd grab a stick, and and I'd play dead, and I'm like, ah. And some of the cutest things where she walked over to Jake, and he's like, or she was like, her's dead. Her's dead. And I was just thinking that was the cutest thing, because she just looks like a tiny Jake. And I think he's gorgeous, so when I look at her, I'm just like, she's the cutest little thing ever.